Turns and however you do is good. Eva means
It's 553, right?
yes.
Can you spell our screen?
Just a second.
553. Happy Ekadashi to everyone.
Happy Ekadashi.
Yeah, that's right. Good.
Eva Manishe Krita Sauhridata. Janeshu Deham Paravartikeshu. Griheshu Jayat Matrati Matsu. Na Priti Yukta Yavad Artascha Loke. Eva Manishe Krita Sauhridata. Janeshu Deham Paravartikeshu. Griheshu Jayat Majarati Matsu. Na Priti Yukta Yavad Artascha Loke. Eva Manishe Krita Sauhridata. Janeshu Deham Paravartikeshu. Griheshu Jayat Majarati Matsu. Priti Yukta Yavad Artascha Loke.
Yava Maise Krita Saudradata. Janeshu Deham.
That's it.
Janeshu Deham Paravartikeshu.
Griheshu Jaya Kajarati Matsu.
Na Priti Yukta Yavad Artascha Loke.
Yeva Maishe Kriti Sohidata. Griheshu Jayat Majarati Matsu.
Yeva Maishu Krita Sohadratata.
Eva Maishe Griheshu Jayat Majarati Matsu.
Na Priti Yukta Yavad Artascha Loke.
Eva Maishe Krita Sohridartha.
Jnaneshu Deham Paravartikeshu.
Griheshu Jayat Majarati Matsu. Eva Maishe Krita Sohridartha.
Janeshu Dehambara Varitikeshu.
Janeshu Deham Paravartikeshu. Those
who
Va or Mani
So we do it together. Very eager to develop love in relationship of Dasa, Sakya, Vatsasya or Madhurya. Janeshu Tamrika, Dehamara Vartikeshu, who are interested only in maintaining the body, not in spiritual salvation. Griheshu to the home, Jaya wife, Atmaja children, Rati gathering of friends, Matsu consisting of Nama not, Priti Rata carrying attached, Yavat Parama, who live by collecting only as much as required, Sha and locate in the material world.
Translation and your own Vaishnav Prabhupada, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Together?
Those
Those
who are interested in reviving Krishna consciousness and increasing their love of Godhead do not have to do anything that is not related to Krishna. They are not interested in mingling with people who are busy maintaining the body's eating, sleeping, mating and defending. They are not attached to their homes, although they may be householders, nor are they attached to wives, children, friends or wealth. At the same time, they are not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Such people are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and soul together.
How are we doing, Papa?
You can read it, you can ask anybody to do it.
Let me read. Papa. Whether he is an impersonalist or a devotee, one who is actually interested in advancing spiritually should not mingle with those who are simply interested in maintaining the body by means of the so-called advancement of civilization. Those who are interested in spiritual life should not be attached to only comforts in the company of wife, children, friends and so forth. Even if one is a grihastha and has to earn his livelihood, he should be satisfied by collecting only enough money to maintain his body and soul together. One should not have more than that, nor less than that. As indicated herein, a householder should endeavor to earn money for the execution of Bhakti Yoga. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma-Nivedanam. A householder should lead such a life that he gets full opportunity to hear and chant. He should worship the deity at home, observe festivals, invite friends in and give them prasad. A householder should earn money for this purpose, not for sense gratification. So we are learning about the teachings of Lord Rishabh, and we are in the third verse. So let us recap what we have learned so far. What was the first verse that you all have read?
The first verse it mentioned about like we are given this material body, so we should do penance and austerity to advance in Krishna consciousness and not do like eating, sleeping, waiting, defending like others.
Which is also available to
And
What's the second verse? And also talks about the penance. That's the first part. What's the second verse? How to attain that process?
yeah, the path to attain liberation from bondage is to serve the pure devotees of the Lord.
Bhat Seva. So second verse is to, it is giving a how to process. The first was what. What is that we should not do sense gratification for maintaining the body, for having, you cannot do material attachment, which is also available to the lower level animals, hogs and dogs, proper uses a lot. Hard word, hogs and dogs. And it is also there. So we, for human life, since having gotten a human life, the thing that we have to perform is austerity and penance. That's what. And then the next verse talks about how. How is by doing Mahat Seva. Seva to the great devotees, Mahatmas. And the third verse that we are here is talking about the definition. The definition of that process. How it can be done. So what did we learn just now? Those who are interested in Krishna consciousness, they do not do anything that is not related to Krishna. They do everything related to Krishna. That doesn't mean they don't earn livelihood, they do. But they don't have attachment to the family in terms of wealth, wife, children, and so on. But they do as much as it is required. They earn livelihood also as much as it is required. It is not that they don't earn a livelihood. They do it just enough to keep their body and soul together. This word you keep hearing, only Prabhu to keep my body and soul together. So this is where it is coming from. So let's go back few more steps into understanding the context of this verse itself. Anybody can share anything that you know from where we are in the chapter or the canto and so on, the background, so that everyone probably who's coming for the first time or have just come today after so many days can understand where you guys are. You have anything to share?
So we see in the fifth canto about King Nabhi and how he wanted a son, and Rishabdev was he had 9 sons. Yeah, and Rishabdev was the eldest son, and he was the incarnation of the Lord, and that is what this chapter maintains. And then now Rishabdev is giving instructions to his sons about how to go through this life.
Yes. Any others?
Just the 5th chapter or the 4th?
Anything from the beginning, whatever you can give the context to everyone.
So, Canto 5, there's a acronym for it, it's the D. So we talk about Rishabdev from chapter 1 to 6. For E, we talk about Bharat Maharaj, Jarkad's story with the deer from chapter 7 to 15. And then we talk about astronomical avatars of Krishna from 16 to 19th chapter. And then we talk about planetary systems, hellish planets, orbit of sun, and everything from 20 to 26. Yeah.
What's the acronym?
R-E-A-P.
E for Bharat.
E for Emperor to be.
Emperor. Okay. P is for planetary system.
Systems.
A is for
A is
astronomical. Okay. B is for planet. Okay, good. So you can understand this.
This is just an aside. In Radharani Sangha, there's a devotee named Matsu, who was a spiritual master, and when the devotee went to meet him, he threw him out the second-story window and attained realization before he hit the ground. And there's a construction material called Keo Matsu, meaning take out Matsu.
Oh, okay. So you're connecting to the word of Matsu here?
Yes.
Okay.
Radharani
Rani
Sangha.
Matsu.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A little more further background. This chapter is about the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu has how many children? Anybody?
Two sons.
5. 3 girls and 2 sons. So the ladies we spoke about their pastimes or their descendants, because remember this is the very first Manvantara. Swayambhuva Manvantara, the stories are from there. And they have a very big task of populating the universe. Brahma has created Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, the very first Manu, and they have a task of progeniting the universe. So we have learned about the stories of Devahuti. First of all, we learned about the stories of 3 daughters. Devahuti is to start off, Devahuti and Kadama in the 3rd canto. And then we learned about the stories of the another daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, who is Prasuti. Akuti very shortly. Prasuti, her daughter is Sati, and she got married to Lord Shiva. Daksha is her father. And then how the Daksha's penance happened, and he got a goat head, and you learned about all that. So then Devahuti had one son called Kapila, and that ended that chapter. Now the next chapter talks about, or the next canto was last canto, 4th canto, which talks about who? Who is the descendant from? Uttara. Uttarapada's son is Dhruva Maharaj. And then his descendants and so on, up to the point of Prachetas. So there, that his descendants were stopped at that point, because Prachetas all became devotees and they went back to God. So there was no one to rule the world. So what happened? Again, Swayambhuva Manu back to square one. He had to get an emperor who can rule the world and continue with the population. So then he had another son called, his name was Priyavrata. Who is he? He is a great devotee from birth. Actually, he had actually renounced everything. He didn't even want to do anything to do with any material. He actually renounced. But he was approached by his father, Swayambhuva, asking him, please come. It doesn't mean that even if you do material activity or rule the world, doesn't mean that you're going to entangle. Okay? Because you can do that as a service to the Lord. He actually couldn't say yes or no. Because he was like, his father, he could take that chance. But then Lord Brahma, his grandfather, at that time he couldn't say no. So Lord Brahma actually convinced him, so no, you cannot do this. You have to accept this service on behalf of the Lord. Because this is not an ordinary service, right? To rule the world according to the religious principles and then progenate population, give them on the right path, it is actually Bhagavad Dharma. So you cannot neglect this. So he actually accepts. So he comes to the material, in the life, material actually was renounced already in the forest. He came back and then he started to actually get attached to the activities of material life, have a family, then children. He ruled in such a way that even he could compete with, anybody remembers? Sun god. He could compete with sun also. He could create, during the summer season, he could create sun in such a way it was very pleasant sun. And during the winters, because the sun is not there, he could create a warm sun. So that's how he could do that. So he created that much power he had. And then after that, his children, and he also had children, and finally realized, okay, I've done enough of this gratification, let me now. So it was his time, and then he had his sons. Who was his son? Agnidra, first son. And then he also was not as elevated, I guess, was he? Nabhi is his first son, Nabhi and Meru Devi. From him came Rishabh. So this is where we are. So this lineage is continuing from Priyavrata. Okay. So Rishabh Dev had got how many sons? 100 sons. So out of that, the first and the foremost is Bharat Maharaj. Again, upon whose name we got this Bhumandala is called as Bharatavarsha on his name. So that exalted he was, Bharat Maharaj. And you will see the story of Bharat Maharaj where he becomes a deer, he gets attached to a deer and so on. So that's a very popular story. So right now we are talking about Rishabh Dev's teachings itself. Rishabh Dev gives very powerful teachings and these are very, very, Prabhupada speaks of this very often. And he quotes it in a lot of places. Very, very prominent verses or the knowledge that Rishabh Dev gives to his children are very prominent. He himself is a devotee, is a family man, and he has 100 children, 100 sons headed by Bharat Maharaj. The first 9 were, the first 10 were Kshatriyas. Some of them became Kshatriyas, some of them even became Avadutas. Avadutas are very exalted Vaishnavas. They don't have any stipulated rules because they are very, very exalted, Avadutas. So the next 9 have become Avadutas. And then the remaining 81 are actually Brahmanas. So that exalted is families, King Rishabh Devs. So the first 10 are the Kshatriyas headed by Bharat Maharaj, and the 9 are called as Navayogendras. These are the ones who come in the chapter 11, when they are giving knowledge to King Devi, Navayogendras. Okay, so the next one are 81. So all are Brahmanas, Avadutas and Kshatriyas. They have understood the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, they have understood the Bhagavad Dharma, and Lord Rishabh Dev actually perfected his life because he has given the knowledge of how to live in this world and leave this world. That is how he has trained his children. So because he doesn't know how many of them will become Grihasthas going forward, because they are probably young children. Later on, this happens. Kshatriyas actually marry, Avadutas are totally out of any material activities. Brahmanas Probably would have become, some of them would have become grihasthas. So you are all in various ashramas here. I see some of you are already grihasthas and some of you are brahmacharis. And many of you, all of you, hopefully will become grihasthas. So these instructions are useful for all of us, right? So this is for everyone. So what the first verse is, this knowledge is to be followed for one who has an aspiration to develop love of Godhead, but not to have the sense gratification activities like hogs and dogs. And now this second verse is to find that person who has that, who's giving that knowledge to you, Mahat Seva. Find that person and do devotion or service to him. Bhagavad Gita 434. What is the Bhagavad Gita 834? Sorry, 434.
Spiritual life.
Yes. See.
Tadvidi.
They can say the verse.
Tadvidi paripatena paripatena sevaya
te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina.
Very good. Pariprashnena. First is Paripad, approach a guru. Pariprash, inquire from him submissively and tender sense. So by that, because they are self-realized souls, they give you the knowledge. And that's how you become elevated also. Because they have seen the truth. And they will be in a position to give you that knowledge. So same way in this verse 5:2 also talking about Mahat Seva. Find that person and perform service unto him. Because they have seen the truth, they'll award you that knowledge. Now going to the next verse that where we are. So one should not do so much that one becomes entangled. So how much is so much for each one? How can you define how much is so much?
You mentioned in the verse that enough to keep the body and soul together, not less, not more.
So what does it mean? To keep body and soul together means?
To charity, to do the charity and to satisfy the family needs.
Yeah, according to Rupa Goswami, anybody knows that calculation?
25.
Oh, 25.
Or 50. Technically, it's like 50, you say 50 you give, and then if you're gross, then 25 for the family, 25 for yourself, 25 for the emergency, 25 for the child.
So according to Rupa Goswami, it is 50% for Krishna conscious activities. Within the next 50%, you use it for yourself and leave some for emergency activities, charity. So I don't want to redefine that, whatever Rupa Goswami defined, we just follow that. But then how it applies to each one depends on each one's situation, right? We can't define it for. But what is the principle behind it is charity at every stage. Whether we are a student, whether we are a brahmachari, whether we are a grihastha, sannyasis don't give charity because they are offered charity. So at every stage there is something that as a principle we need to learn to give charity. So and keeping whatever is required. We cannot behave whimsically also that everything I give, if I am earning so much, I just give away 50% and then take, which is very less to cope up with the current circumstances, and that's not also feasible. So we need to each come up with our own. Again, by how will you come up with that just whimsically? By seeking the proper guidance from the learned people or your teachers, your mentors, and your spiritual master. What is this best thing for me to do? Okay, so that's in this verse also they are talking about that one should not be attached, but at the same time one should perform their duties very nicely. So what it is meaning? By detachment it doesn't mean that we become irresponsible. Detachment in no way means it is irresponsibility. At the same time, performing our material duties or duties, it doesn't mean that it is attachment. So this principle one has to learn. Detachment doesn't mean irresponsibility, and attachment, doing duties doesn't mean attachment. So how you can do that? Doing your duties in a very detached mode without being irresponsible. At the end of the day, you are responsible for everything that you are supposed to do. Either your material duties, or your prescribed duties, or your spiritual duties. Everyone is responsible to act in the way that it is required by the scriptures. Because these are all regulative principles, right? Regulative principles are described in the scriptures. And they are not attached to how each one will take you this particular verse. Like, they will not be mingling with people who are busy maintaining bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, and depending. How will that be applied in our lives? So that doesn't mean that we will not speak to them who are attached to their bodies and family.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you come across these people, first of all?
We have continuous association of devotees, Guru and Shastra. When we have association of these things, we would not be affected by the other people, even if we have any transaction to do with them.
Nice. So you have an internal attachment to your spiritual people, mentors and teachers, and then even if you, because you have that relationship strong, and this relationship, you don't put much interest in it, or you won't put much attachment to those relationships. So does it mean our family members also? Sometimes our family members are not very elevated in Krishna consciousness. What does it mean? You can, everyone share. It's not like I'm going to teach everyone this, right? Each one has experience, how they are dealing with their family members. Not just family members, everyone that they deal with on a day-to-day basis.
It's getting better.
It's getting better? How?
I mean, when I first joined the ashram, my parents were very skeptical. Like, why do you have to do this? But then I was firm that, like, I have to do this. But now they see, change in me, so now they're happy.
Yes. Okay.
I have seen my mother like taking up certain things like reading Gita and offering food at least on Ekadashi and keeping Ekadashi. But I think that she got purified because she has inclination to hear Harikatha. That was very much intellectual progress from something that eating onion garlic to like coming to at least follow Ekadashi was very nice.
Nice.
I feel like when you're walking on this path and your family sees that change or your friends see that change, they feel you renounce everything and you leave home and you become a monk, and that's like a typical expectation. So that's why they get very scared and skeptical in the beginning of what's wrong, who's spoken to my child, what has happened to them. They become very protective. But I think over time, when they see you be happy, when they see you do better in life, when they see you be more responsible to all your duties, not attached but responsible, then they learn from you. Then they will do things, they're like, oh, you're doing this. Like I went home recently for a month, and at home they are always religious, but they're not very Krishna conscious. We've gone to the temple ever since I was a kid, but no onion garlic, not Krishna conscious. And now every morning they're offering food and they're making food prasad. And there's no onion garlic, and we talk and we say things, and the kids are coloring Krishna's books that they've got, and they're saying who have done this. So they really pick things if they see that the application of these principles is not taking you away from them, but making you happier in your mind, more calmer, and that they feel, acha, whatever you're doing is good. It's working. So then I think their propensity to accept us and even imbibe some of the things become higher.
Nice. Yes.
Somebody sorry. Once it was mentioned like when one person is awake in their family early in the morning because of that person's awakeness, others gonna be awake too because that person's gonna be cleaning, cooking or something they do. Especially the mothers in the morning, they will turn on the lights and people willingly, unwillingly, the other family members have to get it. Same thing happens here too. When one person is doing the austerities or somewhere doing the sadhana, it's going to affect the other family members. I mean, that's how Krishna pulls cannot be forceful, we cannot preach them. They are, they are elders and we have to respect at the same time. And then when the soul literally purifies itself, it automatically mixes up. They mix up with themselves.
Because it's contagious, right? Devotional service is contagious. You see one person doing and they're really connected to their heart, it moves their heart and they also think, wow, there is some change. Maybe a positive change. It's good. Looks like it's a good change. Right?
And mostly in Indian families, people are religious, like she said, but like my family too, they're very religious, but they haven't really figured out that person connection. And when they saw, this can be practical, that's when things started to change. My mother started listening to Harikatha, Amrita, and I sent her like a lot of classes. And she
Somebody is proposed for the rescue.
So yeah, it's changing. It's making a difference.
Anybody else? But we know these are at the, some things are very, it can be seen, they are little gross things, isn't it? You can see them, like you are waking up in the morning, you're chanting. Unless internal things change, of course to some extent, external change won't happen. Like you won't change your tilak, you won't wear your different clothes, unless you have felt it that way. But you think we are there yet? See, this is, yes, we have changed. We have changed our clothing, we have changed our dressing, eating habits, we have changed our association and all that, right? So do you think we are there yet already? Wherever we have to be? So we are still work in progress. That is, there's a lot of work to be done. And most of the work is, externals are taken care. The internal thing is the most difficult thing, and that's work in progress, and that takes a long work. And we know that. They might not know that. They think that we have changed. Or they're going to become sadhus, they're going to monks. Do we think we'll become monks? Does anybody think they have come to the stage of becoming a monk? Giving up everything, where it's happened?
It's like Maya pulls us more.
So most of it is internal. So that's the toughest part that still remains. And we know that. How hard it is to make that progress. To be able to be detached, at the same time being responsible, at the same time being doing our activities in a regulated way, and doing our Bhagavatam, and following all this, that amanitvam, amanditvam, you have put those, amanitvam. What is that? Humility. This is from which place?
These are the 6 principles of Krishna house.
Krishna house. But that first one, amanitvam, is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. Text 8, 7, 6, 8, something like that. Look up. Amanitvam. Next word is? Yeah, here it is, but that I'm talking about Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, so you want to say anything about these? Amanitvam, Samadarshana, Himsa. Okay, speak about that. Amanitvam. What is humility?
Humility is like not getting disturbed by others' behavior, remain in your conscious form, and treating everyone with affection.
Thinking of yourself to be with no ego, thinking of yourself as a very low, no ego, I think would be humility. Where there's this thing that we used to read earlier. You think of yourself lower than the straw in the street, then automatically
We think less about ourselves. Right? So that's next, Samadarshana. What's the verse in Bhagavad Gita? Huh? Same. I don't want numbers.
It's talking about Chida fraction state.
Sorry, bro?
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says we need to stay in
Siddha Prajna. Did you say that? Yes. Samadarshana is equal vision. The verse that says in Bhagavad Gita is Brahmane Gavigastini Suni Chaiva Swapakyecha Pandita Samadarshana. What's the starting? Two verses. Reading me too. Ahimsa, non-violence. What does it mean? What is Prabhupada's definition of ahimsa? Not eating meat and not that.
No.
That's not it, okay?
To be successful in achieving our goal, so that will not take birth again and again, so that in that way we'll do ahimsa. I think that.
Non-violence maybe with the words that we use, the body language and the words towards others. It should be non-violent.
It goes there, as well as there is one more thing, Prabhupada's definition of ahimsa. Gross thing is we don't eat meat, of course, and then we don't hurt others, we don't cause any violence on any living entity, either by words, mind, and actions, to any living entity, whether it is animal or human being. And then what else is the other definition?
Mercy?
Of ahimsa, Prabhupada's definition is, if we don't preach, we are causing non-violence. If one is not sharing spiritual knowledge to others, it is non-violence.
Non-violence or violence?
If you are not sharing, it is non-violence.
Sorry.
Sorry, violence.
Violence.
Sorry. So it's, if you are not sharing,
It's a violence that brings.
we are doing violence on other living entities. Icha.
Choice.
So how will you put that into perspective?
You have a choice. Like there's this thing that we say, choose everything that's favorable to Krishna and reject everything that's unfavorable to Krishna. So I think this is more like make those choices actively. That take you on the path of Krishna.
What is that verse? Choose everything favorable to Krishna and leave that.
Anukulyasya sankalpa. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati vishvaso bhokti varnantata atmanikshekakarpanye sharvita sharanagati.
This is the definition for surrender. Accept those things which are favorable to Krishna consciousness by the choices that you make, and reject those things that are unfavorable again by the choices. Icha. Rakshishiti vishvaso bhokti varnantata atmanikshekakarpanya sadvida sharanagati. This is the 6 symptoms of surrender. What is priti? Affection. What is another definition of Rupa Goswami? This is Bhakti Vinod Thakur, sorry. Rupa Goswami's Priti Lakshanas. 6 Priti Lakshanas are there.
Oh,
Tadati.
adapter of instruction.
Yeah.
Giving gifts.
Tadati. The verse Tadati. Tadati pratigranati guhyam akyati gacchati bhokti bhojati jaya sharvita priti.
Anybody understood? Say.
I don't know English. Tadati prati.
Dadati means to give. Pratigranati means to accept. Give and accept. What?
Offering gifts.
What are we giving and accepting?
Offering gifts in charity.
Food,
Yeah.
gifts,
Yeah.
anything. Books.
Accepting charitable gifts.
Yes. What is the next thing?
Giving one's mind and confidence.
Dadati pratigranati guhyam akyati prachati. Guhyam means confidentially share our heart, and then akyati prachati means
Accept prasadam.
not yet. That is over. Dadati pratigranati. What is the next one?
Inquire confidence.
Inquire confidentially, reveal your mind in confidence.
Accept.
Bhunte bhojayate. Yeah, next up.
Accepting prasadam.
Bhunte bhojayate chaiva sarvida pipilakshana. So these are the 6 symptoms of affection. So one should develop those. We should give up gifts, exchange the gifts, share our mind in confidence, and offer and receive prasadam. So most of the cases, the first 2 and the last 2 happens. Where is the problem that usually is? Which area? Within this verse. Anybody? Are we projecting that? Yes, that's the most difficult part or not happening so much part. But where is the most transformation happens? In these 2 places. Revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. Because other things we do automatically, right? We give prashadam, we take prashadam, we give gifts. But the most thing where actual transformation, I don't say it doesn't happen with these things, this is a starting point, but where that difference happens, where the knot gets untangled is when we inquire confidentially and reveal our mind confidentially. So that's what Rupa Goswami is. Then Acharya, teaching by example. So that's everyone has to act as a. What is the verse? Anybody can quote? Yare deke Krishna Upadesh. Amara Amara आज्ञा है यही उपदेश. I don't want to be schooled, you can check. But the point is Yare deke Krishna Upadesh. Wherever you see Krishna, will you go and start preaching to them? How does the preaching happen?
By being an example.
That's starting with an example, role model. Inspiration is what, when they start seeing the difference in you, when they come asking you, when they ask you and then you start revealing, and that happens in a more, which way? Like, when you go start talking to people, will they listen to you? What will they say?
Crazy.
We know. So, but when did they start talking or listening to you?
When they have inquisitive.
They see you by example and they come to you, they have opened their heart, and then when you speak, it makes a difference. So that's teaching by example. So not just by words, by example. So those are the principles, that's very nice. But yeah, so we can apply that to this verse also, like by inculcating these values in our way of life, we can develop that. How much is enough for us? What is just enough to keep our body and life together? By following these principles and continuing to do that subtle things which are most essential. That's called those things we have achieved, right? We have learned that. The subtle Brahmanical work. That's called Brahmana work. That is still left with all of us. The subtle work. That is something that we have to do and continue to do. And that's when we will be able to differentiate. Even if we meet with these people who are attached, we'll be able to protect our consciousness. Right? We'll not degrade ourselves. We'll protect our lives, we'll protect our consciousness. That's the most important thing. Okay? Anything else? Yes.
So if we say, if someone comes new to temple and if we tell him about Bhagavad, so we become spiritual masters?
In our own capacity, yes. We may not be sitting on Vyasasana and giving initiations, but then in our own capacity. Yeah. Each one is a spiritual, can act as a teacher, right? Yes, Prabhuji.
Krishnadas Kaviraj Das was asked to go to book distribution after 2 weeks of participating in Krishna consciousness. And he felt unqualified, and he said, you have 2 weeks. You're 2 weeks ahead of the people you talk to. Is the answer you received.
So if after 2 weeks you go out,
Sure.
and then you are actually 2 weeks in advance of the other people.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's what you look at.
John.
Yeah, the question.
The word Bharat was used in previous class. I had the same question. In Mahabharata too, the Bharat word is used.
What?
Bharat.
Bharat.
Yeah. And that the Bharat word came from Krishna's. Incarnation of Krishna was Rishabh Maharaj and his son was Bharat.
Mm.
So when did the Leela Mahabharata happen? Was it after this Bharat was born or before this Bharat was born?
In Mahabharata there is a Bharat?
Ramayana.
No, not a Bharat, but The Mahabharata word was used, I guess.
Oh,
Bharat
Bharat.
Bharat
It's
word
greater
was used.
India. It means that.
Was it different? That Bharat word was used, so was it different, or did that word come from this Bharat?
India, I mean the Bhumandala, it's not just India, right? The entire planet is called as Bharatavarsha.
Planet.
So the name is after this Maharaj, Bharat Maharaj.
So that Leela happened after this?
Yes, we are talking about first Manvantara, Swayambhuva Manvantara. This is the beginning of creation.
Yes. So and then Krishna was born as Krishna after this.
He appeared as because he comes at every time, right? Whenever there is Yadaya Dharmasya Gyanam Bhavati Bharata Abhyuttana Dharmasya Tathātmana. Another one? Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Dushkritam Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. He appear millennium after millennium. Doesn't mean Krishna is not there, right?
But I think Antariksh Prabhu was asking this yesterday also. He just wants to know the chronology of things. He's not saying that Krishna came just that. I think his question is that when he took incarnation as Krishna, did that happen before the rest of the story or that happened after the rest of the story?
Yes, because yesterday I
But
was
this, as I said, this is the first Manvantara. Right now we are in a Vaivashvata Manvantara. The current Manvantara we are in, and Krishna appeared how many years back? 5,000 years back in this Manvantara. We are in seventh, I don't know the sequence, but we are in Vaivashvata Manvantara. This story is from Swayambhuva Manvantara, which is the very first creation. So this happened way before.
So, but both the stories happened on the same planet. It did not go parallelly on different universes.
It could have. These are eternal stories. When Krishna chooses a particular place to appear, it is like, say that Prabhu, did I answer that question?
Multiverse.
No, I was like, but it's just the time was different, but it was the same planet, right?
Do you mean?
Yes.
If you see, there are places in India, there are places that relate to that past time. For example, Lord Narasimha's appearance. Prabhupada said at some point, I don't want to get into controversial topics, but Prabhupada said this is not in this planet. This is another planet. So we don't know. Like you can say it happened on this planet, but it could have happened in other planet also, in another day of Brahma. This is the first day of Brahma, right? It could have happened in any other planet also.
So, Prabhu, like I did not start from the beginning, and I don't have knowledge about the Brahmasya properly. So, should I start it with the country first, and that's where I'll get all the knowledge and information, or it's just because the foundation is weak, that's why I'm getting that?
It's okay, no problem. You can either continue with this, or you can go back and read in your free time to understand.
I have a question rather, following up on that. That they say that a lot of sannyasis and people who have, like Prabhupada for example, Prabhupada could see the Leela of Radha Krishna, and they say that it's happening but we don't have the eyes to see it. So we can't say it happened 5,000 years ago, it's eternal.
It is eternal.
People who get that vision, they see it even now.
Yes.
Right?
Nitya
Yeah.
They happen.
So we can't say that it happened 5,000 years ago.
But there is
Stop.
some chronology documented in Bhagavatam, right? It's happened in the Swayambhuva Manvantara. So we can accept that also.
So some things are eternal and some things are chronological. Is that what we're saying?
No.
Then?
These are all eternal pastimes, happened in the history at some point, but the devotees who are exalted, they can see them happening in their front of their eyes right now. How is that they are Nitya Pravishta? We say that in our prayers, Nitya Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pada. They are going and accepting those, also seeing those pastimes eternally. Yeah.
I returned to